side, as well as the special counsel in this historic arraignment, as the former president of the United States, has been booked and is now facing 37 federal counts. Scott McFarland, thank you so much. I want to bring in South Carolina Republican Representative Nancy Mace. She worked on Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and in 2021 voted against impeaching Trump in relation to the Capitol assault, but she did not condemn his actions. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to ask you, did you read through the whole 49-page indictment?
I absolutely did. I try to educate myself on what's actually happening, but I have to be honest with you. And I'm someone, I've had my ups and downs with Donald Trump over the years. That's been very public, but I just can't get beyond the fact that the precedent for how we handle classified information was first set when the DOJ and the FBI decided not to indict Hillary Clinton, who had a private server, who had classified information on that server, who obstructed justice, wasn't even president, wasn't even a former president, but was going to be a presidential candidate. And that was the precedent that was set.
I've heard you make this argument, Congresswoman.
I know, but then I see this today,
Thank you,
and it really is shocking to me.
Yes, and I wanted to drill down on that because if you read the indictment, you notice that it mentioned the willful retention of documents. And so the distinction that has been made in the case of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is the willful retention of documents, as is laid out, in a question of obstruction. That the president repeatedly was told about his actions and he repeatedly obstructed justice. You see any distinction there?
Well, I will say today, when I watch what's happening in this country, the FBI had access to all those boxes in every single room, and the precedent was set under Clinton that she would not be indicted. I think it's worthwhile to have a conversation about how we handle classified information post-presidency. I think that is a worthwhile debate because we want to protect our nation's secrets, okay? I want to get that off the bat. But the precedent was set under Clinton. She had a private server. I can't think of anything more willful than hiding a server in your bathroom in your home. I can't think of anything more willful than using hammers on your own telephone, cell phone devices, and your iPads to obstruct justice and then to be let off. And so if that's the standard, then it should apply to everyone, including Donald Trump.
But clearly you don't think that should be the standard. That's the argument that you're trying to make. So you believe that Hillary Clinton should be held to a different... You think Hillary Clinton should be held to a higher standard, and so then you must also agree, therefore, that Donald Trump should be held to that same high standard.
But that's not the standard, because under Hillary Clinton, she was let go. She was not indicted. She had classified documents on her server. They tried to obstruct it, and she was able to walk away. So if that's the standard, then you had Mike Pence, who had classified documents in his home. Then you had Joe Biden, who had classified documents spread across the country in different boxes, including unsecured in his garage. If Trump's going to be indicted, so too then should be Joe Biden. I also can't get beyond the fact that every time we find corruption, evidence of corruption on Joe Biden, Donald Trump gets indicted. I mean, that's what I see just as an everyday American, as someone who hasn't seen eye to eye with Donald Trump, and that's how we're going to operate. I don't think it's the right way, and I think it's shameful what's happening today.
Congresswoman, I understand you represent the 1st District of South Carolina, which is the suburban areas of north and east of Charleston, and you served on the Armed Services Committee, right? How many military members do you represent?
We have about half of all the bases.
How many members of the military?
I'd have to go back and look, but about half of all the bases in the state of South Carolina reside in the low country of South Carolina, the area that I represent.
How would you rate the importance of protecting those members who serve in the military that are in your district and in the state of South Carolina?
Protecting our national security should be a top priority. But Donald Trump is held to a different standard than our own president today, by anybody else, and even Hillary Clinton, who was able to walk away by obstructing justice, and the Justice Department and the FBI said she did nothing wrong. So if that's the standard, then why is Donald Trump treated differently? At the end of the day, I think that's why, or where, the average American is going to see this headed. It's not the same standard to indict him but not indict anybody else. Now, I think we should protect our national secrets.
I also understand, is it true that
classified information that are unsecured, but Joe Biden had classified information in in his garage, unsecured, sitting next to his Corvette, and God knows where else in this country. So he should be indicted or be held
Where
to
is
the
that
same
information
standard as
now?
Donald Trump.
And
Well, I hope
Congressman,
that it will be
what happened to that
collected.
information when it was revealed?
Hopefully it's been collected by
Immediately
the government.
collected?
Right, but where is
so
he had over
once they
1,800
found out about it, they returned
of
it.
information, including classified documents. So that's the standard. And I think Donald Trump's being treated unfairly here.
So
I
was asking you about your.
That's classified.
I hear you. I was asking you about your district, though. Don't you want to talk about your district? I was asking you about your district.
Yes, and I answered
I understand.
your question,
so does your
which
district
was to
include
say
Joint
about
Base
half
Charleston?
Of all the bases, if you'd let me speak, I said about half of all the bases in South Carolina are in the low country of South Carolina. That I represent on the House Armed Services Committee. I've said it like
and
3
how
times
important
now.
is it to preserve
I don't know
nuclear?
if you can hear me or not.
How important? I am having a little trouble hearing you. Sorry, Congressman. It is
That's
quite
what I
loud
thought.
here, so my apologies. How important is it in terms of safeguarding America's nuclear secrets?
It is very important. It is of the utmost importance to protect our nation's secrets, period.
And so if, as was alleged, there were documents that contain America's nuclear secrets in a storage room, in a bathroom, or in a ballroom, would that concern you?
It would absolutely concern me. But again, the FBI had access to those documents, they had access to those boxes, and they had access to all those rooms as well.
Congresswoman, the FBI did not have access to those documents. There was a subpoena for those documents, and then the attorneys for Donald Trump said that they had given all of the documents over, when then that was not true, and then they had to have a raid.
I remember last summer
Thank you so
that
much,
it was reported in open source
I apologize
that the FBI
about
had
the audio
access to Mar-a-Lago.
issues.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I apologize. We're having an audio issue, but Congresswoman, I thank you so much for joining us. We were getting some feedback, so I apologize on that, but I think there was some back and forth. There was some misunderstanding. She was misrepresenting what, in fact, the FBI had access to at Mar-a-Lago.
There's no way. She made it sound that, like, the FBI had unfettered access to those documents. Well, they didn't, and that's why there were negotiations and ultimately the subpoena.
Yeah, it was a misrepresentation, to be clear, of what the issue was. The president, the National Archives repeatedly demanded that those presidential records, government records, be turned back over. When they were not, then they said, we're going to refer this to the Department of Justice and the FBI. The referral was then made. A subpoena was then issued. Some documents were handed over. The Trump attorneys signed an affidavit that said they had turned them all over, which was inaccurate and not true, which is why then there was an additional seizure of additional classified documents.
Also, if you're looking for a similar standard to be applied, there's a special counsel looking into the facts of the case with Joe Biden. He hasn't skated. It's happening. The difference in the two cases, the differences we know because we don't have the findings of the special counsel looking into the current president, but we know the difference is that Joe Biden acted voluntarily, whereas the former president did not act voluntarily. We also know that the number of cases is far smaller than in the case with Donald Trump. We also, nobody who talks about standards with respect to law enforcement, let's imagine for a moment that you thought Hillary Clinton was guilty. There's nobody who says that a miscarriage of justice in one case, if that's what you hold, gets somebody off in another. In other words, our mothers told us that 2 wrongs don't make a right. So you should enforce the standard in any given instance. And in this instance, the energy to assert a standard is missing from the conversation of the presidents, those who would defend the president. Also, there's a political standard, whether the president maintained the kind of character that you would want of a person who's asking to be given power again in the presidency.
What is at stake in terms of the FBI's credibility with this case and the continued assaults on the FBI's credibility?
If you come to South Florida, which I've done numerous times because I like visiting South Florida, you talk to people down here, and some of them will say the FBI has gotten beyond its charter. The FBI is out of control. And why do they say that? Because they see what is happening to former President Trump, and they don't like it. However,